This happened to me back in 2019 when I was working the graveyard shift at a 24-hour gas station just outside Des Moines, Iowa. At the time, I was in my early 30s, recently divorced, feeling stuck, tired of people and small talk, and honestly, I just wanted a job where I could clock in, keep my head down, and get paid. No co-workers, no customer service smiling contests, no office drama. The overnight shift was perfect for that. It was quiet, predictable, the occasional trucker passing through, a few drunk college kids on Fridays, some locals grabbing cigarettes and coffee. But for the most part, it was just me and Hum the Freezers, counting hours with whatever true crime podcast I had queued up. The gas station itself wasn't anything special. Small, 2 big windows facing the lot, 1 register, 2 aisles, a backroom office, and a hallway with a pair of dingy public bathrooms. The only tech we had was an old black and white security monitor in the office. And even that flickered like something out of a horror movie when the weather turned bad. But something about one particular night still sticks with me. And I don't think I'll ever forget it. It was a Tuesday, slowest night of the week, and the time was just past 2:45 a.m. I remember because I had just restocked the gum rack and was halfway through doing inventory in the candy aisle. The store was dead quiet. Not a single car had pulled in for over an hour. I even joked to myself that the highlight of my night might be organizing the peanut M&Ms. Then I caught movement outside the front window. Not a car, not headlights, just a shape. I looked up, expecting maybe a guy walking a dog or someone cutting across the lot. But no, there was a man standing about 15 feet from the door, just standing, still as a statue. And he was wearing a clown costume, full getup, baggy red and yellow jumpsuit, oversized buttons, white gloves, rainbow wig that looked like it had been through a dryer, and worst of all, a white plastic clown mask, not painted on makeup, not a real face, just a flat, expressionless mask with red lips, blacked out owls, and a dull, glossy finish that reflected the overhead gas station lights. No oversized shoes, no balloon animals, no laugh, just silence. At first, I thought it was some kind of joke, maybe a prank. Halloween was still a couple weeks away, but sometimes the college kids got creative when they were drunk or dared each other into stupid bets. So I rolled my eyes, went back to my clipboard, and wrote down how many bags of Skittles were on the shelf. 2 minutes passed, maybe 3. I glanced back at the window. He hadn't moved, still standing there, still staring straight into the store. His hands were at his sides, not raised, not doing anything, just watching. If you've ever had an experience with someone wearing a clown costume in public, especially at night, hit the like button and let me know in the comments. And be sure to subscribe for more real horror stories every week. Now I was annoyed. The guy wasn't coming in. He wasn't leaving. He was just being weird. So I opened the door and stepped halfway outside. Hey man, you good? Nothing. No sound. Not even a twitch. He didn't nod. Didn't move. Just kept facing forward. I stood there for another beat, then shook my head and went back inside. I figured if he was trying to be creepy, he'd get bored once I stopped reacting. But just in case, I checked the monitor in the office, the camera pointing at the lot. There he was, dead center. The image was grainy and washed out, but unmistakable, and he still wasn't moving. I sat back down behind the counter, trying to shake off the unease. I even laughed a little to myself. Maybe it was a good prank, get the lonely gas station clerk to jump. But the thing was, I wasn't scared so much as uncomfortable. There's a difference. Scared is when you expect something to happen. This felt worse, like nothing was going to happen, and that was the whole point. Then I heard the door chime. He was inside the store. No footsteps, no sound the door opening. Just ding, and there he was, standing just past the threshold. Same mask, same outfit. He didn't move, didn't speak. I stayed behind the counter, suddenly very aware of how far I was from the bat we kept tucked beneath the register. You okay? I asked, trying to keep my voice even. Need something? Still nothing. He turned his head a little, almost mechanically, and began walking down the first aisle, slowly, deliberately, like he knew the layout already. I watched him on the security monitor. He passed through the drink section, didn't look at anything, didn't touch a single item. He disappeared down the hallway toward the bathrooms. And then nothing, no sound, no movement, no sign of him. I waited 5 minutes, then 10. Finally, I grabbed a bat and crept toward the back. The hallway light was flickering, one of those LED panels that had been going bad for weeks. It made everything look blue and shaky. The bathroom doors were closed. I knocked on the men's room. No answer. I pushed it open. Empty. I checked the women's room. Also empty. The back office? Still locked. There was nowhere else he could have gone. Nowhere to hide. And I never heard the door chime again. I went back and reviewed the footage on the monitor. You could see me walk toward the back. But the clown? He wasn't there. On camera, he walks toward a bathroom hall and then vanishes. He doesn't show up on the hallway cam, doesn't exit the store, just disappears. If you're still with me, drop a comment below. Ever dealt with something strange during a night shift? And don't forget to subscribe. I've got plenty more stories coming. I called the cops, reported suspicious activity, gave them the best description I could, which honestly wasn't much. They sent a cruiser by around 3:30 a.m., took a statement, did a sweep of the lot. Nothing stolen, no damage, no trace on the cameras. It was like the guy had never been there, except I knew he had. The part that really messed me up came about a week later. A regular came in, guy in his 50s, friendly enough, always bought a coffee and gum. He looked at me and said, "Hey, you work nights, right? You see that guy dressed like a clown walking along Highway 17 last Tuesday?" I told him I had. He nodded, almost like he was relieved, then said, "Weird." He tried to flag down my car. I didn't stop. He had something in his hand. Looked like a knife. Could have been fake, but didn't look fake to me. Then he just paid and left. I never saw him again after that. 2 months later, I quit, moved to a different town. Took a job doing warehouse inventory during the day. But sometimes when I'm driving at night and there's no one else on the road, I catch myself checking my mirrors a little too often, waiting for that flash of white plastic, for those dark, empty eyes, for the clown that never left the store. Thanks for watching. If you like this story, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. I'll be sharing the next 2 disturbing clown stories in this video. And trust me, they only get weirder from here. This happened to me in 2021. I was 34 at the time, and my girlfriend had just moved into a new apartment complex in Jacksonville, Florida. It was a nice place, modern, clean, the kind of development with assigned parking, a gym no one used, and signs reminding you to leash your dog. Decent amenities, mostly young professionals, and small families. Nothing sketchy. Very normal. She had only been living there for about a month when one of the other tenants, a woman she chatted with a few times at the dog park, invited her to a birthday party for her 6-year-old nephew. We didn't know her well, but she seemed nice enough, and my girlfriend didn't want to be rude. I tagged along mostly because it was supposed to be food, and I figured I could help carry the gift she'd wrapped. We weren't there long, maybe 40 minutes total. The party was on the ground floor in one of those shared community rooms that apartment complexes sometimes have. You know the kind: linoleum floors, stackable chairs, and weirdly aggressive air conditioning. There were a couple folding tables pushed together with pizza boxes, cake, and plastic cups of juice. Dollar store decorations taped to the walls. It all felt very average. Low budget, but warm. Except for one thing. There was a clown. They brought one in, or maybe just showed up. I don't really know, but there was this guy in full clown costume standing off to the side when we walked in. Red and blue outfit, a bright yellow curly wig, white gloves, big red nose. Pretty standard look, except that it felt wrong, off somehow. The thing is, he wasn't doing anything. No balloon animals, no magic tricks, no dancing or goofy voices. He wasn't juggling or making faces, or even trying to talk to the kids. He was just standing there, near the corner of the room, completely still. one hand holding a red balloon, the other resting on a little black duffel bag at his feet. At first, I assumed he was just waiting to start his routine. Maybe they were going to call him up once everyone had eaten. But as the minutes ticked by, he didn't move, didn't interact with anyone, just stood there, slightly turned toward the kids, but never engaging. I even joked my girlfriend, maybe he's shy. She didn't laugh. I started to notice that the other adults weren't acknowledging him either. No smiles, no introductions. Just pretending he wasn't there, like they didn't want to look at him. At one point, the woman hosting the party walked past him on her way to the cake table, and I swear she flinched, just a little, like she didn't expect him to be so close. She forced a polite smile, but didn't say a word. She just kept walking. That was the first red flag that really stuck with me. If you've ever been to a birthday party where something felt wrong, especially with a higher performer, hit the like button and let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy real-life horror stories told calmly and truthfully. Anyway, the clown eventually left just as quietly as he come in. No announcement, no fanfare. He bent down, picked up the duffel bag, still holding the balloon, and walked out the door. No one stopped him. No one asked where he was going. My girlfriend leaned over and whispered, "Did they actually hire him?" I shrugged. "I think so. Maybe." We left about 10 minutes later. Honestly, the whole thing was weird, but not something we felt like dwelling on. There was no incident, no screaming kids or upset parents. Just this eerie, uncomfortable silence that followed him around the room like static. Still, by the time we got home, I had basically forgotten about it, until 3 nights later. It was a Thursday. I was at home finishing up work on my laptop when my phone buzzed. A text from my girlfriend. "The clown is in the parking lot." My stomach dropped. I called her immediately. She answered after one ring. Her voice was quiet, tense. "He's just standing there, by the mailboxes. Same clown, same outfit, same wig, same bag. But the balloon," she paused. "It's not inflated anymore, just a long red balloon, hanging from his hand like, I don't know, a string." I asked if he was moving or doing anything threatening. She said no. He was just standing there, watching the building, not pacing, not knocking, just waiting. I told her to lock the doors and stay away from the windows. Then I grabbed my keys and drove over as fast as I could. By the time I got there, maybe 15 minutes later, he was gone. We looked around the complex. I checked the sidewalks, the mailboxes, the perimeter. Nothing. He had disappeared as suddenly as he'd arrived. The next morning, we went to the leasing office and reported it. They were polite, but mostly unhelpful. They said no one had permission to perform or advertise on the property, and they hadn't received any paperwork for an entertainer at the party. In fact, they said the tenant hadn't booked the community room at all. She just asked if she could use it, and they said yes. No formal reservations, no hired staff, no clown. They checked the building's external cameras and later confirmed something deeply unsettling. The clown had never come through the front gate. He was recorded climbing over the back fence near the dumpsters, a tall metal fence topped with rusted spikes. He must have come through the woods that bordered the complex. You could see him in the footage, yellow wig bobbing as he crouched down and slipped between shadows. He wasn't a guest. He never went inside the building. He just watched and left. A few days later, a strange handwritten note appeared on the community bulletin board near the dog park. It was taped in the corner, next to flyers for pet sitting and yoga classes. All it said was, "If anyone has photos of the man in costume from Saturday, please contact me." The kids never saw his face. Neither did I. No name, no phone number. Just that, no one posted follow-up. We didn't go to the dog park after dark anymore. My girlfriend moved out a few months later. Not because of the clown, not officially, but she said she never really felt comfortable there again. That feeling of being watched stuck with her. It stuck with me, too. Every time we drove past that building after she moved out, both of us would glance toward the tree line near the parking lot, half expecting to see something just beyond the fence. I a yellow wig, a blank painted face, a single balloon held loose in a gloved hand. Thanks again for listening. If you're enjoying these real clown horror stories, don't forget to subscribe, and share with someone who hates clowns. You'll definitely get a reaction. Stay tuned. The third story is the one that still gives me chills every time I think about it. Back in 2017, I was working as a regional sales rep for a software company. It wasn't as glamorous as it sounds. Most of my job involved long hours in rental cars, cold coffee, and PowerPoint demos in fluorescent-lit conference rooms. Lots of solo travel. Lots of late nights in hotels. Usually the kind with numbers in their name. Holiday Inns, Comfort Suites, Best Westerns. This particular story happened during a trip through Kansas. I'd been driving since morning, trying to make good time between client visits. And by the time the sun started setting, I was absolutely beat. Somewhere just outside Kansas City. I pulled off the interstate looking for a place to crash. Nothing fancy, just something cheap, clean, and close to the highway. I spotted a small roadside inn tucked between a Waffle House and a gas station. It looked decent enough on the road. Single-story, U-shaped parking lot. Faded sign with blinking letters at red. Vacancy. I was too tired to be picky. I parked and went into the office. The guy at the front desk was quiet, probably in his late 40s, with that small-town politeness you get from people who work night shifts a little too long. He handed me a room key, an actual metal key, not a card, and told me I'd be in room 103. The ice machine was broken, he said, but there was a vending machine at the far end of the lot if I needed anything. Try not to park too close to the corner rooms, he added. Drainage gets bad there. Seemed like a weird detail, but I nodded, thanked him, and headed out. As I walked along the row of rooms, dragging my overnight bag, I passed room 109. Its curtains were slightly open, not all the way, just enough to give a glimpse of the inside. That's when I saw him. A clown, sitting in a chair by the window, completely still. He wasn't doing anything, just sitting there in full costume, white painted face, red smile, yellow hair, striped jumpsuit. It was like something out of a low-budget horror movie. My first thought was that it had to be some kind of decoration, a prop, maybe even a mannequin someone set up as a joke. But then the light inside flickered just for a second, and I swear I saw his head move, just slightly, a subtle tilt, as if he were watching me. I stopped walking. My brain tried to explain it. Road exhaustion, a weird trick of the light. Maybe someone had just left the TV on with a clown doll in the chair. But even from that brief glance, something felt wrong. I shook it off and kept walking. Got to room 103, unlocked the door, and collapsed face down onto the bed without even bothering to take off my shoes. I was asleep in minutes. Sometime around 1 a.m., I woke up. My mouth was dry. I remembered the vending machine the front desk guy mentioned, so I sat up, groggy, and pulled on my hoodie. My shoes were still on. I slipped my key into my pocket and stepped outside. The night was cold. Still, not silent. I could hear the hum of the highway in the distance, but the parking lot itself was empty. No cars moving. No lights on in any of the rooms. As I walked toward the vending machine near room 109, I noticed something different. The curtain on room 109 was closed now, but on the window, in the condensation from the cold night air, someone had drawn a smiley face. Not a normal one. It had excess for eyes and a wide, crooked grin. Childlike, crude, and beneath it, written in the fog on the lower half of the glass, were two words. Knock, knock. If you've ever stayed in a sketchy motel and experienced something that didn't feel right, drop a like on the video and tell your story in the comments. And if this is your kind of creepy, don't forget to subscribe. I stopped walking. My chest tightened. The air suddenly felt heavier. That handwriting didn't feel random. It felt deliberate, purposeful, fresh enough that the glass hadn't cleared. The moisture was still dripping around the letters. Someone had been there just minutes ago, maybe even seconds. I didn't knock. I didn't even get the soda. I turned back toward my room, walking faster than I meant to. And that's when I heard it. Two sharp knocks. Behind me, On the glass, I froze mid-step. My heart was in my throat. I didn't turn around. I didn't want to know what I'd see. I just kept walking, faster now, nearly jogging, key already in my hand, fingers fumbling as I reached room 103. I got the door open, slammed it shut behind me, and locked both locks. Then I pulled the curtains tight, shut off the light, and stood there in the dark, breathing hard. For the next 2 hours, I didn't move. I lay on the bed, hoodie still on, listening. Every creak, every footstep from the lot outside made me flinch. At one point, I heard them slow, deliberate footsteps passing right in front of my door. Not hurried, not stumbling, just steady, measured, like someone walking from door to door, waiting to see who answered. Eventually, I must have fallen asleep, because when I opened my eyes, the sun was bleeding through the edges of the curtain. It was around 7 a.m. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. I sat up, trying to convince myself it had all been a dream, some kind of stress-fueled hallucination. I packed quickly, not even bothered with the free breakfast. When I stepped outside, I couldn't help but glance at room 109. Its curtain was wide open again, and the chair where the clown had been sitting, it was empty, perfectly positioned to face the parking lot. Just sitting there, waiting. On my way out, I stopped by the front office. The same guy from a night before was working the desk, sipping from a gas station coffee cup. I mentioned room 109, tried to laugh it off. Something like, "Hey, someone really into Halloween decorations in that room, huh?" The man's face didn't change. He didn't laugh. He didn't smile. He just blinked at me and said, "That room's been empty for a week. We had a tenant pass away in there last month. Haven't re-rented it yet." That was all he said. I didn't ask any more questions. I just left. I've stayed in dozens of hotels and motels since then, from boutique suites to roadside dumps, and I've never had anything like that happen again. No strange knocks, no hidden messages, no painted faces in the dark. But every now and then, when I hear a knock at my hotel door in the middle of the night, and it comes in twos, I feel that same cold grip crawl up my spine. And I don't answer. Thanks for watching. If these stories creep you out, make sure to like, subscribe, and share the video. And next time you see someone in a clown costume just standing still, maybe keep walking.